Well, good morning. My name is Andrea Pessino. This is my third year. It's been quite exciting to see the first one when we were 50 people or so. I don't remember where. Every year it keeps getting bigger and bigger, so quite an exciting scene to watch. And I'd like to thank once again Raul and Marco for inviting me once again. I'll sum up very quickly who I am. Born in Asti many years ago. In 1990, I moved to US in California. I'll just give you the important ones. I went to Blizzard Entertainment in 1998. Worked there for about 5 years on titles like Warcraft 3. That was my primary. Better? That was my primary title. I spent about 5 years on it. World of Warcraft and with Diablo 2. In 2003, I started a company called Studios. We've so far made 4 games. Largest ones for the PSP, Daxter, God of War, and God of War Ghost of Sparta, which was released just a couple of months ago. And today I'm here to talk to you about passion. We'll start with the basic definition or the reason why I'm talking to you about passion. Passion is a non-physical force, and it is a force in every other sense. That it pushes us to do things even when those things are probably not the smartest thing to do or the best things you can do for yourself or for your preservation. Passions are always in battle with reason and the logical things to do in our lives. The reason why I'm talking to you about these things is because my personal experience, passion has had a pivotal role in shaping my decisions. Passion tends to be selfish, illogical, and incontrovertible. In the sense that if you have a choice, and this will be kind of the key point of my talk, if you have a choice about what you're doing, then it's not passion. Then reason is guiding you. Reason is deciding for you. Passion is also the seed of art. I think we will all agree that art without passion is nothing. It's an industrial endeavor. It's not art anymore. And since, in my opinion, art is also the one thing that makes the whole human experience bearable, passion is also the key to the human experience. It's what makes life worth living. I am not qualified to talk to you about passion. I'm not a sociologist, not a philosopher, certainly. I just make video games. I will not provide any lessons, any revelation. I'm not going to tell you how to be successful. That's beyond my abilities. And once again, this is going to be a personal tale in the sense that my experience is the only data point that I have in life. I really, I don't have anything else. I also promise this is the last time I talk about my life. Think of it. And as I was saying, in my personal experience, passion has always won, or almost always won. Whenever there's been a conflict, there was a passion-driven option and a reason-driven one. I've always chosen the passion. Sometimes it was the good thing to do, and others it was not. But you can get an idea of what it's like to live your life that way. And even if you don't, it is my conviction that understanding the process by which you make key decisions in your life, particularly during your formative years, but not exclusively in those years, understanding why you choose to take certain risks and do certain things, rather than doing other things that might be safer or the other way around, can bring a much clearer way to think about yourself. So, talking about me again, some people have one big passion, and that is hard already, because it's much easier to live life without being driven really hard. But then there are some people who have multiple passions, and that is even harder, because then the passions not only fight against your reason and your logic, then also fight each other, and as well as their common enemies. So what they end up doing is you risk diluting the effort. It's a little bit like what happens with politics when you have, two big opposing parties, and then there is someone in the middle, like, I don't know, Ralph Nader, for example, in the US, who's there just to steal votes from one of the others, and he ends up, taking the guys in the center and giving the victory to one of the extremes. So it's an even more complicated struggle. There is a saying in the US which is, do one thing, do it well. Say that that's the best way to live your life. That's not easy when you're really driven and there are multiple things that just move you intensely that you feel you must do. Then what are you going to do? How are you going to do one thing? You've got three things to do. Another advantage, one of the only advantages of having multiple passions is that while you might be more stressed, you may even, at the end, let reason win, because each one of the passions is not strong enough to prevail over all of the others, and reason. So these are all drawbacks, but there's one possible benefit, which is that you will most likely fail at something at some point. Failure is a reality. The risk, when we talk about taking risks and follow your heart and do the passionate thing, the risk part is real. It's not a joke. It's not something you say and you're pretending that it's there. It's real and it can hurt very much. Okay. So one good thing about having multiple passions is that you might learn to fail well. You might learn to rebound and to understand your failure and still have other passions to keep you happy. That's the one positive aspect. One thing I want to make a distinction about is what separates a passion from just something you like. It's very good to like many things. One of the things, like in our company, for example, we always say, one-dimensional people who have just one interest in life, don't generally go very far. You just need, especially when you're in a creative endeavor, you need multiple things to inspire you and to give you constant new things to think about. So that is good. But a passion is not just something you're interested in, it's something you have to do. Again, I love movies, but I don't have to make movies. I don't, if I could not see movies, I could probably survive just fine, even though I really like them. My passions, I have no choice. I have to do something about them. Of course, there's always such a thing as going too far. You go too far, even with your passion, then it becomes an obsession. An obsession, when taken to this one-dimensional mind, becomes really bad. Company I worked with, Blizzard Entertainment, had a shining example of people who were obsessed. That is actually a pretty accurate representation of some of the people I worked with. These were guys that would, most of the time sleep at the office, get up in the morning, start playing games. They would make games. At lunch, they would play D&D. Then they would put away their, game action figures. They would play games in the afternoon. At night, they would play some games, talk about games. And they did this 7 days a week. And inevitably, every one of these people, after a few years, either have a horrible crisis where they hate everything, or has a horrible health problem, and so forth. It's just not a good way to live. Anybody who is into games, who is passionate about games, dedicates their life to games, that's wonderful. You have to have other things in your life, other things that you're interested in. Obviously, friends, family, all those things. All right, this is, again, my point. Of course, now, so we know what passion is. What do we do about it? Like I said, a passion needs to be satisfied. You need to address it. It's a drive. And that is the cheesiest picture I've ever seen, so I had to put it there. The key to satisfying your passion is how you define your goal. It sounds simple, but it's not. Again, I'll make the example of my 4 passions. I have 4 of them. I have tons of interests, lots of things, too many, but I have 4 real passions. And the key to living with so many passions is to be able to clearly define what it takes for me to call that particular passion satisfied. I'm good about it. One thing I'm not going to talk about is personal relationships. You know, everybody's passionate about their family, my children and all these things, or your spouse, whatever. It's just stupid to think about people as if they were, you know, other things you do in your life. Your personal relationships come first. It's a different level. Has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. So here are the first of my 4 passions, of course, making games, programming games in particular. We always say, you know, I make video games. I've been a programmer all my life. I don't design games. I certainly don't do the art for games. I've always been on the technical side of things, and it's always been my specific interest. I program all kinds of things, not just games, but games were always the goal and always the key. My other huge passion, probably the original passion of mine, is music. And I will expand a little more on this later on. Particularly operatic and symphonic music are almost an obsession, at least they used to be when I was younger. Certainly a very deeply heartfelt passion. Motorcycles. I love motorcycles. I love everything about motorcycles. Ride them, look at them, clean them. I read everything about them. I collect them. I go on the track. I ride on the street. You'll never find me in a car, no matter what goes on. Living in California, that helps. Finally, bodybuilding has been a more recent addition. And nothing that I've ever done in my life, just for me, has had this more profound effect on just the quality of my life as bodybuilding has. When I discovered it about 10 years ago, I was miserable. I was, spending my life in a dark room. You know how it is. Bodybuilding gave me not only very important lessons, it really helps you improve your skill of patience. In bodybuilding, nothing happens overnight. Nothing even happens in a week. Nothing happens in a month. It takes years to see any results. And it takes years of being constant and dedicated and really meticulous about following your program and so forth. It's an invaluable skill when you're trying to make, a game that takes 3 years to develop and you see no results for years at a time. And you have to keep your eye on the goal. So it helps on everything, not only on your health, certainly on your confidence, especially when your main activity involves, sitting down for hours and hours a day. With all said and done, even with these 4 passions, they're not all the same. Motorcycling and bodybuilding are my passions. Not just interests, because I have to do something about them. I cannot live without motorcycles. The day that I stop riding, it'll be the day they're either crippled or dead. Bodybuilding, same thing. If my bones start cracking or whatever, then maybe I'll have to stop and then I'll be ready to just curl up and die. But until then, I cannot not do it. And either one of them, that's another key definition of passion, either one of them would be good enough for me if I could do it professionally. If I were a professional bodybuilder or a professional motorcycle racer, that'd be pretty cool. I would be perfectly satisfied. So why did I not do that? Why did I not, try to be challenging for MotoGP or Mr. Olympia? It's a question of internal versus external fulfillment. Internal is the case for me with bodybuilding and motorcycles. I have nothing to prove to anybody. I do it for me. It is a passion. I have to do it. I ride the bikes. I love them. But I have no intention, no illusion that I could ever challenge. And it's not a necessity for me. It's not a requirement of my passion. I don't have to respond to anyone. Same thing with bodybuilding. I don't plan on entering any contests or anything like that. Music, games, that's a different story. That was a type of passion that cannot be satisfied without external validation. Anybody who tells you otherwise, they make the games they want, make the games they want to play, it's a load of crap. Make the games they want others to play. If nobody plays them, it's not the same thing. It might be enough for some people, certainly was never enough for me.